My parents smiled when I got promoted, then posted I'd fund the Vineyard revival when they asked for $100,000 at the reunion. I handed them photos of my new mountain cabin. I'm raising my champagne flute for another toast when I hear my name drift from the hallway. The conversation floats through the cracked door of Dad's home office, carried by my brother's familiar voice. She finally has enough money to help save our family legacy. Blake's words hit me like a punch to the stomach. That promotion couldn't have come at a better time, for them. Dad's deeper voice follows. Let's not rush this, Blake. Mia's always been careful with her finances. We've been discussing this for weeks, Mom chimes in. The winery needs that investment now, not when she's ready. The champagne flute slips from my fingers, exploding against the hardwood floor of our dining room. Dom Perignon splashes across my ivory dress pants and pools around the shattered crystal, our family winery's signature sparkling wine, now soaking into the century-old oak planks my great-grandfather installed. I stand frozen as realization washes over me like ice water. This celebration dinner, supposedly to honor my promotion at Sterling Architecture, was actually staged to soften me up. They've been planning to ask for my money. No, not ask, expect. My hand trembles as I bend to collect the larger glass shards. The cut on my palm barely registers as I process what I've just overheard. $100,000. The exact amount I've saved for my cabin near Lake Tahoe. When I was 12, I'd begged Dad to teach me about wine production alongside Blake. I remember trailing after them toward the fermentation barn, my notebook clutched in my small hands. Mia, Dad had called over his shoulder. Your mother needs help in the kitchen. This is men's work. I'd watched from the window as he showed Blake how to test the grapes, how to sense when they were ready for harvest. Later that night, Blake's D+ in chemistry was celebrated with ice cream. My academic excellence award remained taped to the refrigerator, unremarked upon. The memory burns as I rise, leaving the broken glass behind. My hands have stopped shaking by the time I push open the office door. 3 heads turn toward me. The silence stretches taut between us like a wire about to snap. What were you just saying about my finances? I ask, my voice steadier than I feel. Mom recovers first, her smile sliding into place like a mask. We're just proud of how well you're doing, sweetheart. That promotion is quite an achievement. I notice something strange. My hands have completely stopped trembling. The familiar anxiety that usually churns in my stomach when confronting my family has quieted. In its place is something unfamiliar, clarity. I know exactly what you were planning, I say. You've been discussing how to get my money for weeks. For Blake's tasting room. Mom's smile falters. Dad's leather chair creaks as he straightens. Your brother has put his whole life into this winery, Dad says, his tone hardening. The Castellano name means something in this valley because of his dedication. Blake leans against the mahogany desk, arms crossed. This isn't just about me, Mia. It's about our family legacy. The tasting room expansion could double our revenue. I calculate quickly in my head, 6 years of careful saving, working weekends, taking on additional projects. 6 years of independence sacrificed for a brother who's never sacrificed anything for me. That money is for my cabin, I say firmly. My investment in my future. Mom's lips press into a thin line. So you'd put a vacation home above family? It's not a vacation home. It's my future. I meet each of their eyes in turn. And this isn't about family. It's about bailing out Blake. Again. The accusation hangs in the air between us like smoke from a dying fire. The next day, at my downtown apartment, the email sits on my laptop screen, its words burning into my retinas like acid. I stagger backward into my desk chair, stomach lurching as though I've been physically struck. Regarding strategies to secure Mia's contribution, reads the subject line. The message is from Dad to our family financial advisor, who forwarded it to me, with Mom and Blake copied. My throat constricts as I read Dad's calculated words. Paul, we need to present this as an opportunity, not a request. Mia has always been cautious with her money, too cautious if you ask me. The promotion puts her in a position where she can finally contribute to the family legacy. We're thinking $100,000 for a 10% stake. Mom's reply follows, remember to emphasize the family aspect. She's always wanted to be included. The final punch comes from Blake, Let's call it Blake's tasting room in the official paperwork. After all, I'm the one who's kept this place going while she's been building her little career. My hands shake as I scroll through weeks of correspondence. They've been planning this ambush for months, calculating the exact moment when my promotion would make me financially viable to them. Not as a daughter or sister, as a resource. I print everything, tucking the pages into a manila folder. Evidence. The next morning, I park across from the law offices of Hamilton and Associates, watching my family file inside. They don't know I'm here. After Sunday's confrontation, Mom left 3 voicemails insisting we talk through this misunderstanding like adults. Dad hasn't called at all. Through the glass storefront, I can see them arranging themselves around the massive oak conference table. Mom smooths her navy skirt, Dad checks his Rolex, and Blake spreads papers across the polished surface. Aunt Patricia sits stiffly beside them, her hands folded in her lap. The investment documents are centered precisely in front of an empty chair. My chair. I don't go inside. Instead, I call the office from my BMW. This is Mia Castellano. I'll be joining the meeting by phone only. I'm connected to the speakerphone in the conference room. Mia, darling, what's this nonsense? Just come inside, Mom says, her voice strained. I'd prefer to have this conversation with some distance, I reply, surprising myself with my steady tone. Winston Hamilton, our family lawyer since before I was born, clears his throat. Well, we're here to discuss the investment opportunity in Castellano Family Winery. Specifically, the expansion project for Blake's tasting room, I finish for him. Yes, I've seen the emails. A weighted silence falls over the line. Those were private communications, Dad finally says, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. About me. Without me. I take a deep breath. How many other family members have you approached for money? Another silence. Then Aunt Patricia speaks, her voice smaller than I've ever heard it. They got $50,000 from me last year. 4 new fermentation equipment. She pauses. The equipment was never purchased. That was different, Blake interjects quickly. We had unexpected costs with the irrigation system. But this time it's different. The tasting room will transform our revenue stream. Like the wine club transformed it 3 years ago? Aunt Patricia asks quietly. Or the online store before that? Through the window, I watch Blake's face redden. My phone buzzes with incoming texts. Uncle Theodore, don't let them pressure you, Mia. Cousin Stephanie, are you going to do your part for the family legacy? Grandmother's caregiver, your grandmother hopes you'll consider what family unity means to her at her age. The subtext is clear, refuse, and I risk losing my relationship with my 89-year-old grandmother, who still believes in family unity above all else. The thought sends a pang through my chest. I do quick mental calculations as the conversation continues in the background. 6 years of saving. Thousands of hours of overtime. If I give them what they want, I'll need at least 4 more years to rebuild my savings. 4 years of delaying my own dreams for Blake's ego. I need to go, I say abruptly. I have a meeting. Mia, wait, Mom begins, but I've already ended the call. At Sterling Architecture, I bury myself in work, trying not to think about the weight of family expectations crushing me from 40 miles away. Just before lunch, Catherine, my boss, stops by my desk. You okay? You seem distracted. Her eyes, sharp behind designer frames, assess me with genuine concern. Family stuff, I say, attempting a smile. She nods, then glances at the Lake Tahoe cabin listing partially hidden beneath my drafting papers. That the property you've been saving for? Yes. But my family, they want me to invest in my brother's winery expansion instead. Catherine leans against my desk. You know, when I recommended you for promotion, there were 4 other candidates. You weren't the most senior, but you were the most deserving. She taps my latest project proposal. Your promotion wasn't luck, Mia. It was earned. Something loosens in my chest at her words, one small moment of validation in a lifetime of being overlooked. As I drive home that evening, I wonder if protecting my financial future is worth the family relationships I might lose. Should I stand firm against decades of favoritism, or make one sacrifice to keep peace with the only family I have? The cabin listing sits on the passenger seat beside me, its promise of independence almost tangible. On my phone, 3 more missed calls from Mom. I turn toward home, decisions still unmade. The next day at work, the notification pings while I'm reviewing blueprints at my desk. I ignore it at first, focused on the structural modifications for the Henderson project. When my phone buzzes a second time, I glance down. A string of alerts from Facebook. Odd. I tap the screen and freeze. Blake's latest post fills my display, a sunset photograph of our family winery, rows of carefully tended vines stretching toward distant mountains. Below it, his caption reads, "Family support makes dreams come true. Excited to announce expansion plans for Castellano Winery. #family legacy #winery life." Comments flood the post. Cousin Melissa, so proud of you carrying on the Castellano tradition. Aunt Joanne, a good sister always supports her brother. Family first. Uncle Stephen, can't wait to see the tasting room with your name on it. My fingers hover over the screen. They've all assumed I'm part of this. Without my consent or even my knowledge, I've been cast as the supportive sister bankrolling my brother's vanity project. I close Facebook before I type something I'll regret. The office phone rings. I answer without checking the caller ID. Mia? It's your mother. My shoulders tense instantly. I'm at work, Mom. This will only take a moment. Your father and I are hosting a family reunion next weekend at the winery. Blake will be presenting his expansion vision to everyone. We expect you there, of course. Not a request, a summons. The familiar pressure builds in my chest. I'll have to check my schedule, I say, knowing it won't matter what conflicts I cite. Family comes first, Mia. Saturday at 4. She hangs up before I can respond. My hand trembles slightly as I place the receiver down. They're escalating, moving this from private manipulation to public pressure. The reunion isn't about family, it's about cornering me in front of witnesses. When my cell phone rings 20 minutes later, I nearly jump out of my skin. The area code matches my hometown. I let it go to voicemail. The same thing happens twice more that afternoon, calls from my family's area code that I can't bring myself to answer. By the third call, my heart races at the mere sound of the ringtone. I silence my phone completely. Later that evening, I check my voicemail. The first message makes my blood run cold. My mortgage officer, James Peterson, sounds oddly hesitant. Ms. Castellano, we need to discuss your pre-approval for the Tahoe property. Some concerns have been raised about your financial commitments. Please call me back as soon as possible. The room tilts slightly. Concerns? What concerns? The second message clarifies everything. Uncle Theodore's voice. Mia, just had a nice chat with James Peterson. We go way back to college. Mentioned you might be overextending yourself with this cabin idea while the family business needs support. Call me. I sink onto my leather couch, nausea rising. They're sabotaging my mortgage. My own family is actively working to destroy my financial future to secure their own. For the next hour, I methodically document every communication, screenshots of Blake's post and the comments, Mom's call, the voicemails. I send an email to my bank requesting all interactions regarding my mortgage application be conducted in writing and password protected. I change every password on my financial accounts. I contact the credit bureaus to place alerts on my credit reports. By midnight, my dining table is covered with papers, financial records, property information, loan documents. I'm constructing a fortress around my savings, brick by meticulous brick. My phone rings again. Unknown number. I almost ignore it, but something makes me answer. Mia, it's Sandra, your real estate agent. My grip tightens on the phone. Has something happened with the mortgage? Nothing like that, Sandra says, her voice brightening. Actually, I have amazing news. Remember that property in South Lake Tahoe we discussed? The owners just dropped the price by 15%. It's perfect for you, 3 acres, that gorgeous view of the Sierra Nevada, and it's just 10 minutes from Heavenly Ski Resort. For the first time in days, I feel something other than dread. Is it still within my budget? With the price reduction? Absolutely. She pauses, then laughs. And wait until you hear what the locals call that area, Freedom Ridge. I find myself laughing with her. The name couldn't be more perfect. I want to see it. This weekend, if possible. I'll set it up, Sandra promises. After we hang up, I stand at my window, looking out at the city lights. For a moment, I can almost see it, my cabin on that ridge. A place that belongs solely to me, built with money I earned through my own talent and determination. The doorbell rings, shattering my reverie. It's nearly 1 a.m. I peer through the peephole and see Mom standing in the hallway, holding a wine bottle. I open the door without greeting her. She steps inside, presenting the bottle like an offering. Castellano Reserve Cabernet, 1995, she says. From the year you were born. We've been saving it for a special occasion. The bottle's label bears our family crest, the one that never quite felt like it belonged to me. The wine inside is nearly black in the dim light, dense and valuable. This is just the beginning of what you'll receive if you invest in the family, she continues, setting the bottle on my granite counter. A case of reserve wines every year. Your name on a plaque in the tasting room. Your children's future secured. The calculation of it all, bringing this bottle in the middle of the night, the implicit bribe, ignites something in me. My future isn't for sale, I say quietly. Not even to my family. Mom's smile falters. Don't be dramatic, Mia. This is about legacy. No, it's about Blake. It always has been. We've always supported both our children equally. The lie hangs between us, so blatant it almost takes physical form. 3 decades of seeking their approval flash through my mind, the academic achievements, the career successes, the financial discipline, all in pursuit of the recognition Blake received simply for existing. I think you should leave, I say. She reaches for the wine bottle, but I place my hand over hers. Leave the wine. I might need it while I'm signing the papers for my cabin. The next morning at work, I find Marcus at the coffee machine. Without preamble, I ask, "Can you help me draft an email?" Threatening to quit already? He jokes, then sees my expression. What's going on? I explain the situation while we walk back to his office. He listens without interruption, without judgment. When I finish, he simply nods and opens his laptop. Family financial boundaries email, he says, typing. Let's make this crystal clear without burning bridges you might want later. For the next hour, we craft a message that's professional, direct, and unambiguous. No emotional appeals, no justifications. Just clear statements of my financial autonomy and the consequences of further interference. This is perfect, I say when we finish. Thank you for helping me. That's what friends do, Marcus says simply. That evening, I call Sandra and schedule the cabin viewing for Saturday afternoon, the exact time of my family's reunion. While on the phone, I send the email Marcus and I crafted to my entire family. The moment after I hit send, a weight lifts from my shoulders. At my dining table, I create a detailed spreadsheet comparing the financial returns of investing in my cabin versus the winery, property appreciation rates, rental income potential, tax advantages. The numbers don't lie, my cabin is objectively the better investment. My phone rings. It's my bank. Miss Castellano, this is Emma Rodriguez from Sierra Valley Bank. I understand you've been working with Mountain West Financial on your cabin purchase, but I wanted to introduce myself. We specialize in vacation properties in the Lake Tahoe area and can offer you significantly better terms than your current pre-approval. I smile as I add this new information to my spreadsheet. The universe does indeed seem to be making the decision clear. On Saturday morning, I drive to South Lake Tahoe. Freedom Ridge exceeds every expectation, towering pines, granite outcroppings, and a view that stretches across the pristine lake to snow-capped mountains beyond. It's perfect, I tell Sandra as we stand on what will be my future deck. Let's move forward with the purchase. 2 hours later, I sign the preliminary agreements, my hand steady as I commit to my own future. As I drive back toward the winery, the signed papers in my briefcase feel like armor. Time to show my family exactly what I've learned about investments. I stand at the head of the massive oak table that has witnessed 4 generations of Castellano family gatherings. Everyone's eyes are on me, some curious, others wary, a few downright hostile. Aunt Patricia fiddles with her pearl necklace. Uncle Theodore drums his fingers against his coffee mug. Blake sits directly opposite me, arms crossed, jaw set. The manila folder in my hands contains 10 years of winery financial reports that took me 3 sleepless nights to compile. I've highlighted the key sections in impossible to miss yellow. Thank you all for inviting me, I say, my voice steadier than it's ever been in this room. Before we discuss any investment in Blake's tasting room expansion, I'd like to review the winery's actual performance. I lay out the first report, sliding copies toward each family member. For the past decade, Castellano Winery has operated at a profit margin of less than 2%. That's significantly below industry standard. Dad shifts in his chair. Mom's smile tightens. In 2019, there was actually a loss of $35,000, I continue, making deliberate eye contact with each person around the table. And in 2021, despite record tourism in the valley, profits were only $12,000. Aunt Patricia glances at Blake, her eyebrows pulling together in silent question. Last year's harvest yielded 20% fewer grapes than projected, I say, placing another document on the table. Yet the projection for this year claims a 30% increase with no explanation for the turnaround. Those numbers don't tell the whole story, Blake interrupts, his voice cutting across the room. You've never cared about the family legacy. You don't understand what it takes to run a winery. You just sit in your fancy office, drawing pictures of buildings while I'm working the land every day. The room falls silent. I wait, expecting Dad to jump to Blake's defense as he always has. Instead, Uncle Theodore clears his throat. Actually, I recall Mia trying to learn about winery operations when she was younger. He looks directly at Dad. Wasn't she the one who kept asking to help with the harvest? To learn about fermentation. Dad's face reddens. That's right, Aunt Patricia says, her voice gentle but firm. I remember Mia asking me about bookkeeping for the winery when she was in high school. Said she wanted to help with the business side. I was told it wasn't my place, I say quietly. That Blake would handle the winery business. Mom leans forward. That was years ago, Mia. This is about now, about family loyalty. Is it loyalty to invest in a business I was never allowed to participate in? I ask. A business that, according to these numbers, hasn't been profitable enough to sustain itself for over a decade? Several relatives exchange glances. The atmosphere in the room shifts perceptibly. Grandmother Helen, who has been silent until now, reaches across the table to touch my hand. Would you consider a smaller investment, dear? Just to keep peace in the family. I hesitate. Would a token contribution maintain relationships while protecting my dreams, or would any compromise simply enable more demands in the future? The cabin plans flash through my mind, my own piece of land, my own legacy. Before I can answer, my phone buzzes. Catherine's name appears on the screen. Excuse me, I say, stepping away from the table. I need to take this. Mia, Catherine says, her voice crisp and professional. I'm sorry to interrupt your family gathering, but we have an emergency with the Riverside project. The client is demanding immediate revisions to the East Wing before Monday's presentation. Relief washes through me. We'd planned this call, a lifeline if the family pressure became too intense. I understand, I reply, keeping my voice appropriately concerned. I'll be there as soon as I can. When I return to the table, expressions range from disappointment to suspicion. I'm sorry, I announce. There's an emergency at work. I need to leave immediately. This is more important than your job, Dad insists. We need an answer today, Mom adds. Blake slams his hand on the table. This is exactly why the winery is struggling, because no one in this family is willing to sacrifice anything for its success. His face flushes dark red. You think I haven't put everything I have into this place? We're drowning in debt. The bank is threatening foreclosure if we don't show major improvements by next quarter. The room falls silent. Several relatives stare at Blake with new awareness. Foreclosure. Uncle Theodore repeats. You never mentioned that. Why would my $100,000 make a difference if things are that dire? I ask quietly. Blake doesn't answer. The question hangs in the air between us. I think we all need time to process this new information, Aunt Patricia says carefully. Perhaps we should reconvene next weekend, after everyone's had a chance to review the numbers Mia provided. Dad opens his mouth to object, but Mom places a hand on his arm. That's reasonable, she says, though her eyes flash with frustration. We'll meet here at the winery next Saturday for a final decision. As I gather my papers, I catch Grandmother Helen watching me, her weathered face thoughtful. She gives me a single, almost imperceptible nod. I walk out of the dining room with my head high, the knowledge of my scheduled cabin closing the following morning as secret strength carrying me forward. The final confrontation comes the next Saturday. I arrive at the winery with the sun casting long shadows across the rows of grapevines. The tasting room doors stand open, welcoming the cool autumn breeze that carries the scent of fermenting grapes and freshly tilled soil. My hands grip the steering wheel tighter as I spot Blake's truck parked beside our parents' Mercedes. They're waiting for me inside. I can feel it. Dad rises from his seat at the tasting room's oak table when I enter, his smile too wide, too practiced. Mom fusses with a tray of cheese and crackers, avoiding my eyes. Blake stands by the window, watching the vineyard workers tend to the morning harvest. Mia, Dad gestures to the empty chair. We were hoping you'd join us for brunch before the family arrives later. I set my leather portfolio on the table but remain standing. I'm not hungry. Blake turns from the window, straightening his Vineyard logo polo shirt. We've been talking, and we have a special proposal for you. Mom slides into the chair beside Dad, finally meeting my gaze. We know how much your financial independence means to you, so we've adjusted our offer. An exclusive family arrangement, Dad adds, sliding a folder toward me. Instead of 10% ownership for your investment, we're offering 15%. I flip open the folder, scanning the new ownership agreement. The text blurs slightly as anger rises in my throat. 15%, Blake repeats, his voice practiced, smooth. That's a 50% increase in your stake, Mia. No one else in the family is getting these terms. Dad leans forward, elbows on the table, fingers steepled. $100,000 for 15% ownership in a winery that's been in our family for 4 generations? Your great-grandfather would be proud to see you stepping up. Mom touches my wrist. Family supporting family. The subtext hangs heavy in the air. Refusing means choosing money over family. I close the folder slowly, gathering my thoughts. My heart hammers against my ribs, but my voice remains steady when I finally speak. I've already invested my money. The silence that follows stretches taut between us. Mom's fingers retreat from my wrist. What do you mean? Blake demands, crossing the room in 3 quick strides. I unzip my portfolio and remove a stack of photographs, laying them one by one on the table. I bought a cabin in South Lake Tahoe yesterday. 3 acres with views of the Sierra Nevada. The first photo shows a rustic A-frame nestled among towering pines. The second captures the panoramic mountain vista from the back deck. The third displays the deed with my name printed across it in bold black letters. You bought property without telling us? Mom whispers, her fingers hovering over the photos. Just like you discussed my finances without telling me. I meet her gaze, unflinching. I've invested in my own legacy, one I built myself. Dad's face darkens. This is incredibly selfish, Mia. Blake has had every advantage I never did, I finish for him, and he's still asking for more. The tasting room door swings open as Uncle Theodore arrives with Aunt Judith and Grandmother. More family members filter in behind them, carrying potluck dishes for the reunion lunch. I hadn't expected so many so early. Perfect timing. Since everyone's here, I say, raising my voice slightly, I'd like to share something important about the winery expansion. The room quiets as I retrieve my laptop from my portfolio. Opening a financial analysis spreadsheet, I connect to the tasting room's wall-mounted display. I've reviewed the winery's finances for the past decade, I begin, clicking through charts showing declining profit margins despite increased production. Based on current debt load and market projections, the tasting room expansion would require 5 investors at $100,000 each to become profitable within 5 years. Uncle Theodore steps closer to examine the numbers. $500,000? Blake said you'd need just 1 or 2 investors. Blake lurches forward. Her numbers are wrong. She doesn't understand the business. Which numbers are wrong specifically? I ask, scrolling through the detailed analysis. The overhead costs you provided to the bank last quarter? Or the profit projections you shared with potential investors last month? Blake's mouth opens and closes, no words emerging as he realizes I've accessed the same financial records he used to secure his business loan. These numbers contradict each other, I continue, highlighting discrepancies between documents. Either the winery is struggling more than you've admitted, or you've misrepresented its potential to investors. Uncle Theodore removes his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Maybe it's time to consider professional winery management instead of more family investment. The room erupts in murmured conversations. I catch grandmother's gaze across the crowd, expecting disappointment. Instead, she offers a slight nod, her eyes clear with something that might be respect. Later that evening, as I drive back to my condo, my phone buzzes with texts about rumors that 3 potential investors have withdrawn their interest in the winery. My parents haven't called or messaged since I left the reunion. When my phone chimes again at midnight, I expect another angry family member. Instead, Blake's name appears with a message, "We need to talk privately. I have a new proposal." I set the phone down without replying, watching city lights shimmer through my window. Whatever his new proposal might be, I'll face it on my terms, not his. For the first time in my life, that feels like enough.